Hey everybody, welcome to Resistance Reads. I'm Michael Kilman.
I'm Matt Wellstrom.
And today we focused on Kurt Vonnegut's third novel.
We looked it up.
Mother Night.
Yes. I thought it was fourth, but it's third.
It's third, yep. It was first was Player Piano, second was Sirens of Titan, which is definitely his weirdest book. And then this is Mother Night is number 3.
Yes.
We'll get into a full synopsis here in a minute, but just broadly speaking, it is about a man who is a Nazi propagandist, but also an American spy.
Yes.
So, I guess Vonnegut first, real quick.
Yeah. Give us a little Vonnegut rundown.
Yeah. So Vonnegut is, if you don't know who he is, very famous author. Wrote books like Slaughterhouse-Five, Cat's Cradle,
Breakfast
of Champions, lots of great works. There's been a number of adaptations of his work too on screen.
Nick Nolte played the main character in this one.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, which is not what I would have thought of.
Yeah. So and then it was Bruce Willis in Breakfast of Champions.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
yeah. It's some interesting stuff. But Vonnegut is It was actually a World War II veteran. And if you've read Slaughterhouse-Five, you know there's this scene in Slaughterhouse-Five where he's locked in a literal slaughterhouse under Dresden in Germany as the firebombing is happening. And for context, if you don't know, the firebombing in Dresden was far worse than both the nukes dropped in Japan.
It was, it was a clean sweep.
It was they flooded the entire city.
The fatality rate was crazy.
So he actually was in that firebombing. He was one of the few people who survived, and then he was a prisoner of war of the Germans at the time, and then was forced to bury the bodies from all the rubble in Dresden. So that's in Slaughterhouse-Five.
Yeah.
But it's not a fictionalized account. He really had that happen to him. Obviously
in Slaughterhouse-Five, it is a fictionalized account of what happened to him.
Right.
In real life.
Right, because in that he's unstuck in time and can mentally time travel back and forth across his life.
Right.
It's great. If you haven't read Slaughterhouse-Five, definitely recommend it.
So good.
But yeah, so I think that's, in large part where he gets kind of a lot of his political consciousness about war. He lived to be, 84 years old.
Yeah, 2007?
2007 is when he passed away. If you guys have not seen it and you like Vonnegut, you have to watch the documentary Unstuck in Time. It's fantastic. He, the documentary filmmaker got permission to follow around Vonnegut in 1980 and then didn't finish it until after Vonnegut died. So he has all these many years of footage, hundreds and hundreds of hours of footage that he compressed down into 2.5 hours. And you really kind of see a lot of Vonnegut's elder years through it. It's great. Mm-hmm. It gives you a real sense of who Vonnegut was. I'm a big Vonnegut fan, so I started reading him in high school.
Yeah,
as did you.
Yeah.
So that's Vonnegut. It's always interesting because we think he's more prolific than he is.
Yeah,
and I think it's
just 12 books or something like that.
But his work is just so much impactful.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at least 2 of his books are often assigned in high school.
Right.
It's crazy.
Right. Or at least in college literature classes.
Right.
And for good reason.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we realized after last that people seem to really like providing a little bit more historical context. So, leading up to, the concepts and ideas around the book. And so this book, a big element of this is, the Nuremberg Trials and Nazi hunters.
And propaganda, Nazi propaganda.
And so, it's easy to look at the whole rise of the Nazis as a German-specific thing. Mm-hmm. But it's also important to understand how prevalent Nazism and white supremacy were here in the United States. I mean, of course, we had Jim Crow laws.
They took a lot of their, racial theories from the eugenics research that was happening in the United States in the first part of the 20th century.
And eugenics is actually, the whole concept of eugenics is American-made.
That's right.
Concentration camps are largely modeled after Native American reservations.
Mm-hmm.
Hitler, in his own words, actually says that, reservations are good, but you didn't take the next step. You should have executed the population and been done with it. That was his only criticism of the American reservation system, was you didn't quite take it far enough.
Oh, man.
So, not only that, 1938, at the beginning right after, is it right before or right after the invasion of Poland? You have Times Square, or I'm sorry, Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
Sold out to Nazis.
Yes, there's a excellent episode of this podcast called The Memory Palace that describes that event, and a famous Jewish strongman who was passing by, saw the Nazi banner on Madison Square Garden, went, bought a ladder and a baseball bat, tore the banner down, and then beat the shit out of 18 Nazis when he got back to the ground. Yeah.
Wow, I did not know this.
I'll find
resistance everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great example. I'll find the name of the podcast, and we can link it in the show notes if we want to.
Yeah, we definitely should. And then also, the Nuremberg Trials, if you don't know what those are, these are basically the tribunal that lasted between end of 1945, well into 1946, towards the end of 1946. And these were essentially the trials that put all of the terrible things that the Nazis were doing, basically a war crimes tribunal.
Yeah, it was a instance of the I want to say the International Criminal Courts trying to apply some rule of law and justice to what were perceived as unimaginable war crimes, something that had exceeded anything that had ever happened before. They were trying to kind of, I think, bring the temperature down in world affairs and world wars. It didn't really work, obviously.
Well, I mean, let's talk about, Japanese internment camps, the Tuskegee experiments where they intentionally injected African Americans with syphilis during the Second World War.
All of the proxy wars that happened during the Cold War.
Right, right. But, in the spirit of trying to make right, certainly the Nuremberg Trials are an example of the international community saying there are certain things that are too far.
Yeah.
And even if it's not perfect, it is a symbol of that.
Right.
And this book obviously surrounds the kind of idea of bringing Nazis to justice. There are, and we were looking it up before the episode, there are still Nazi hunters out there.
Yeah.
Which we didn't know.
And what was it? The Washington Post theorized that they could still be hunting Nazis for another 14 years, theoretically, based on the longest possible human lifespan.
Right.
It's just crazy to think about someone being a Nazi and then 100 years later, accountability shows up for them.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wonder how they would, I guess, 100 years later, because some of those people were born during the war. I don't know. Who are you holding accountable? The Hitler Youth? Come on, man. Yeah. So it's an interesting thing. I think maybe there's some romanticism going on with the idea of catching the Nazi.
Sure.
But it's at this point, these people are at least 90 years old.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I guess, but then you were saying, the Stephen King novella Apt Pupil kind of reinvigorates that in the 90s. And
absolutely.
There's a film, and then,
what a good one.
Yeah. I've actually never seen the film.
You have? Oh.
I haven't. I love the novella. I think it's a really, because that's in different seasons, right?
Yeah. It's in the same. Yeah, it's in different seasons with Stand By Me and also Rita Hayworth in The Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah, it's and then all.
Wow, that's his best adapted book by far.
Right. Yeah. No, definitely. All 4 novellas, I believe, in that are adapted. But yeah. So that's a lot of what's kind of going on here in the beginning of the book. Vonnegut's writing in 62, was it, this book?
61?
61. So he's writing in 61. So you have to think this is it's 18 years, which, funny, one of the captors in the beginning, one of the jailers in the beginning of the book is just turned 18. And he was born in the last year of the war.
Yeah.
So really Vonnegut is in fact writing that time after the war. This is, people are really still thinking about all the terrible things that have happened. But we've also had now a Korea.
And he's also, he's talking about the fact that one of the characters in the book expresses the idea that can't we just move on? Eichmann. Is it Eichmann? No, it's Epstein. Oh God. Dr. Epstein
was in Auschwitz.
Yes.
As a small child.
Yes.
And his mother can't move on, but he can.
Yes.
But he's this Jew who survived Auschwitz. He's I just don't want to think about it. I just want to move on.
Right.
And there is a lot of people who definitely were felt that way. But to this day you have Holocaust deniers. So it's
Yeah,
How
I
can
don't.
you
I don't
move
think
on?
he was a. Oh,
No,
I
no,
see
no.
what you mean. I see what you mean. Yeah,
Yeah, he's not a denier. He survived
right,
Auschwitz,
right.
But yeah, there's a lot of interesting characters in this book. I think one of the things that Vonnegut does really well is he gives you social commentary from like every angle you can possibly think of.
Absolutely.
You're getting kind of the Russian perspective of everything that had happened. You're getting the American, get the East, the West.
You're getting the German artist perspective.
The German artist perspective of what it is like to survive. And
what it's like to exist during the rise of Nazism and not really want to acknowledge it or engage with it in any way.
super prescient for today.
Really is.
So yeah, so that's kind of a little bit of a historical background and context. So we'll jump into the summary here, and then we'll do our big discussion at the end. We've been pretty good at making the summaries much shorter.
I think we've really nailed this format.
Yep. All right, so a man by the name of Howard W. Campbell Jr. is in an Israeli prison, and he was a Nazi propagandist, one of the most important Nazi propagandists during the Second World War. His direct boss was Goebbels.
Was the guy.
The guy.
Yeah.
So he grew up Campbell grew up in Schenectady, New York, until he was 10, moved to Germany with his parents. Then he became a German playwright and married a German woman, and all this is happening.
German actress, a
beautiful German actress.
She's played by Cheryl Lee in the movie.
Okay.
Laura Palmer of Twin Peaks fame.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then he was like, as Nazism is rising, they kind of treat him as the lead expert of Americans for the Nazis, that's one of the reasons, like, he ultimately, because of his propaganda and because of this, he ultimately becomes very high on kind of the Nazi hunter list for Americans in general.
Yeah.
Because he's like considered a traitor American.
Well, he's doing the thing that the guy that wrote Jeeves and Wooster did, P.G. Wodehouse, where he's doing Nazi propaganda in English.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, his name is mud as soon as the war is over.
Right. He's caught by a Lieutenant Bernard B. O'Hare of the American Third Army. He's then taken to a concentration camp at the end of the war and forced to kind of look at everything. He doesn't really have very much commentary on this. I think he kind of knew what was happening.
Really interesting.
It's just he's very apathetic at this. He's writing at the end of everything that's happening, right? And he's just so kind of like so devoid of emotion throughout this kind of whole narrative. But at the same time, he was an American secret agent during the war. He did, during his broadcast, he would do a series of coughs and strange noises as kind of almost like a Morse code.
Yeah, like pauses as well. Like weird pauses in the middle of a sentence.
Yeah, just like
thing.
that. Yeah. And he comments that, like, during some like really important moments, like in battles and stuff, like the invasion of Normandy, he was like, it sounded like he had like pneumonia. He was like, and then so he's kind of like a secret agent there this whole time. And he's kind of like the narrative jumps back and forth through like different moments in time in his story all over the place. So sometimes it'll be in the middle of the war, sometimes it'll be before the war, sometimes it's very much kind of like his formula for Slaughterhouse-Five in a way.
Yeah, you can see him sort of working out the kinks.
Right, working out the kinks, which a book that was like 3 or 4 books later.
Yeah.
But so he lives in this kind of attic apartment above this doctor, Dr. Epstein.
In Greenwich Village.
And
after the war.
And he kind of, the mother kind of suspects something's up. He's like, your name, how? Because he doesn't even change his name.
That's a weird move.
He doesn't change his name, and he just like lives in New York.
Yeah.
And he just kind of denies when someone asks him, "Are you the Howard W. Campbell?" And he's like, "I hear this coincidence all the time. I assure you, I am not." But he is, in fact, that person, and the mother. The mother definitely is like suspicious and trying to trip him up the whole time. He's recruited in 1939 by the Americans. He's a playwright. He's still writing these plays. the Americans recruit him, and they tell him, like, you know, you need to get in good with the Nazis, by a guy codenamed Frank Wartanen, which he calls for the rest of the book the Blue Fairy Godmother, which I don't really know why he calls him that, but it's, you know, it's a Vonnegut thing for sure.
I feel like that was a reference I didn't understand.
Yeah, it must be a reference that we don't understand. Maybe Cinderella or something?
Yes, yeah, or like Pinocchio?
Or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. You know what was really interesting?
Pinocchio, because he's lying all the time. That's probably it.
Maybe. His call sign was, his sign when someone was supposed to pass him information was "make new friends," and the countersign was "but keep the old." And I couldn't help but think of Andor.
Sure.
I have friends everywhere.
Yeah.
But he lives really minimally. His parents had a bunch of investments. They left Germany when there were, you know, the rise of Hitler came. He stayed behind. But his parents, like, invested in a bunch of stocks and war bonds and all kinds of stuff that paid huge dividends. And he happened to inherit those.
Yeah, so he's making $7,000 a year just on the interest in 1961. Pretty good.
Yeah.
You know, like,
solidly.
you can live in an attic, in a garret, like, room. Yeah, I mean, that would be like, what, $20,000 today? Like, you could live in poverty if you want to.
It might be closer to 40,000.
You know, I might be looking. I might look that up.
Yeah. You do that. So he has a neighbor too, and his neighbor is known as George Kraft, but it turns out, like, he's a Russian agent, and the whole thing is kind of like this weird, dumb coincidence. And George Kraft is actually, you find out really quickly, oh, by the way, at the end of my tale, he'll be in a federal penitentiary, but he doesn't tell you why yet.
Oh, damn. $76,000.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, so you can live extremely comfortably.
Well, shit, that's like basically how much I make right now.
There you go.
So I wouldn't call it living comfortably, but if I was living in an attic, sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess if I was single, didn't have kids, and was living in an attic. Yeah. And his father-in-law, during the war, was the chief of police for just basically a German town. He wasn't he wasn't especially a Nazi, and I think sometimes we think of, like, Germany during that period and think everyone was Nazis. I mean, that's how I kind of thought about it until I got to college and realized that, like, there were lots of, like, normal Germans who were living, and there were also people who, like, attempted to assassinate Hitler or were part of the resistance or various other things.
Exactly.
But, you know, in this case, he was just the chief of police, and he was just doing his, like, basic managing the town job. And he talks about how, like, oh, well, he was, you know, his chief suspects were the usual criminals, you know, drunks and, you know, people who assault one another and steal. And
he's a bad dude. He's a cop. But he's, like, he's not a full-out Nazi.
Right. He's a normal jackass.
Yeah.
Right. And he has slaves, which he abuses. You know, because, like, a lot of Nazis actually had slaves. So
yeah, he's just like Roma people you would round up.
Roma or Polish or, you know, if they weren't in the concentration camps, they were slaves.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
But he gets really close and becomes really good friends with George Kraft. They start playing chess together. George Kraft is like a painter, which so he identifies with him because here's another artist. He's a writer. George Kraft is a painter. And you know, he starts telling, he's like confesses the truth to George. And you know, that's where he kind of gets in trouble because George is a Russian spy, turns out, and so he's like passing this information to the Russians, and they're trying to use it to kind of undermine Americans in the 60s, you know, because, you know, the whole Cold War, and they try to make Americans look bad or whatever. Look what they have right under their nose and all this other stuff. But you know, he starts getting weird mail, and this guy named Lionel J.D. Jones, who is a white supremacist.
DDDS. He's got a doctorate in
fake.
He's got a couple fake doctorates, and he's also a licensed dentist. No, he was expelled. All of his accreditations are false.
Yeah, that's the comedy of it, right? He's a reverend from his
The
own
Reverend
church.
Lionel, yes.
Yeah, it's the Reverend Lionel J.D. Jones. It's a very Vonnegut thing to do, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, he actually outs Howard Campbell because he's like, what a tragedy it is that this true American patriot, he writes in this little circulated
the Christian White
Minuteman newspaper, which like I wonder if Vonnegut was referencing It Can't Happen Here, our 7th episode.
Sinclair Lewis, right?
Sinclair Lewis, our 7th episode, who's writing in the 1930s about the rise of fascism, a fascist dictator in the United States, which are like second most popular episode. So go check it out.
Crazy. I mean, it was, I just, like, that's the one, like, I feel like we've done all these famous books, and, like, that's like a sleeper hit right there.
It is a sleeper hit. That and The Ministry to the Future. That was the other most popular episode. But anyway, so I wonder if there's a connection there.
I have to assume.
I assume Vonnegut's extremely well read, right? So he starts getting the weird mail. He starts getting hate mail from Lieutenant Bernard O'Hare, who realizes who he is and sends him a letter. It turns out that Kraft has been kind of playing all sides.
Yeah.
He's like sending he sent the letter to Bernard O'Hare, who's now like an American Legion member, and
he's definitely doing a Yojimbo where he's just like pitting everybody against each other.
Yep. But Jones himself actually rises up and becomes kind of an important propagandist in America. Turns out he's funded by Hitler, and also turns out that Campbell actually wrote some of the propaganda that Jones is using.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of like this really weird, kind of interconnected little network of hate.
Thing.
Yeah. Ouroboros. Consuming themselves, right? But Jones calls him. Campbell goes to pay him a visit and beg him to pull the article because he's like, I just want to be left alone. So he starts getting more and more supportive white supremacist male. In the visit, he shows up with this weird sort of like hilarious, strange chanting ritual with several white supremacists climbing the stairs.
It's a Christian. I'm sorry, it's a priest, a racist priest who reminds
Catholic
me of that.
priest.
Well, I mean, all
no. Well, yeah,
Catholic.
Yeah, true.
But it reminds me of Father Coughlin, the famous racist radio priest from the 30s.
I wonder if that's what he's drawing on.
I'm sure it is, because he was so famous.
Yeah.
Especially like when Vonnegut was a kid, he must have like had to hear about him, because his broadcast network would like reached up into the Midwest.
Right.
And then like, what's the other guy? There's like there's a scene.
Robert the Black Fuhrer of Harlem.
That's right.
Yeah.
There's this really funny scene where they're all climbing the stairs up this like walk-up apartment in Manhattan, which must be like 12 stories tall, and they have to stop and take breaks because they're all like, old, out of shape 70. Racists. Yes.
Well, and it's so interesting, and it comes up later in the book, because here you have a white supremacist who hates Jews and black people and Catholics, and he's surrounded by Jews and black people and Catholics, and then like there's this like really interesting contradiction apparently, because he points this out, like Campbell points this out, he's like, you are it was like another guy who points out, the FBI when they come
that's right
the FBI like points it out, he's like, but he's a Catholic and he's black and he's Jewish,
why are you hanging out with
why are you hanging out with them? And he's like, well, we all want the same thing. We all hate each other's races. It's like
brothers in hate, man.
Brothers in hate.
Feels like wait, I bet the Coens read a lot of Vonnegut, because that feels like a scene straight out of
feel like
The Big Lebowski, right?
Or Raising Arizona,
yes.
or
Hail Caesar,
any of those, right? Yeah, absolutely, it does feel like a Coen Brothers thing. Kroppentower, who is one of these white supremacists, who he like it gets so excited, he's like carrying the luggage up the stairs because like they also have another surprise, and the surprise that Jones is bringing is that he has found Campbell's missing wife.
Yeah, he thought she was dead.
He thought she was dead. She was somewhere in Russia. That's the last thing he heard of her. So he brings her back. what is it? So Robert, this is really a funny line. Robert, the Black Fuhrer of Harlem, goes on this whole diatribe. He believes that white people will ultimately lose the race war, and Japan, he's going to help. Japan has got their own bomb any day, and they're going to drop it. Mm-hmm. And he says that and they're going to drop it on China. And like Campbell is like, yeah, but like Japan, and they're like both Asian.
The black Fuhrer of Harlem is like the colored people are going to unite and drop the bomb. And so Campbell asks, where are they going to drop the bomb? On China. And he's like, aren't they also colored as far as you're concerned? And he's like, yeah, it doesn't matter.
No, he basically he says China's white. That's basically what he says.
That's right. Yeah.
So it's like this really, it just really illustrates the cognitive dissonance of all the hateful people in this book, right? Yeah. So he and Helga kind of reunite. Helga's his wife.
She was an actress and he was a playwright, and that's kind of how they met.
Right. And he kind of, this meeting triggers recollections of the last day of the war when she asks about the death of the family. So then it flashes back, and his father-in-law is like abusing, like his slaves are carrying like these porcelain vase, and then he's like yelling at them and screaming and like not letting them carry the vase and all this other stuff
because they're like gonna drop it. It's a scene that illustrates that like the cop valued the property more than the people, which is, I think, all what cops are for. Mm-hmm. They're there to protect rich people's property, and they're there to serve and protect the wealthy.
Mm-hmm. Which is why, like, the first cops were slave catchers.
Yeah.
And,
or thief takers.
Yeah.
Depending on which continent you're on.
Yep. True. But there's this really great section, and I want to get into this, like, after the synopsis, where his father-in-law tells him that, like, he always thought he was an American spy. And he's not wrong about that. But he gets, this is like, he's come to basically say goodbye. The Germany is collapsing. He said he's going to go out to the front. And that's what he steals his buddy's motorcycle and goes out to the front or whatever. So he's going to say goodbye to his father-in-law. His wife is missing, so he's going to say goodbye to his, like, in-laws, essentially. And his father says, I realized, like, I thought you were a spy, and I spent my whole time hating you and thinking that any moment you're going to come out as a spy. But I listened to every radio broadcast you ever did, and I realized something. There was no one more effective at communicating hatred and the Nazi cause than you were. Yep. So it doesn't matter if you were a spy, because you were the most effective propagandist out there. So, spy or not, you did your job.
Yeah.
And then, in this kind of weird moment, he connects with he's supposed to go kill the dog, because, like, everything's on its way out. So they're packing up to try to get away.
He's supposed to kill a 10-year-old, like, sister of his wife's dog.
Right, which is named Racy. Racy Not.
I'm sorry, the sister's named Racy.
The sister's named Racy, not the dog. I don't think they even gave the dog a name.
No.
So, and then, like, Racy's like, it's okay, you can kill the dog, no big deal. And then she's like,
I don't like the dog.
I don't like the dog. The dog's terrible. I understand. She's like a little nihilist. It's kind of, she's like, the world doesn't matter. I would be better off dead.
By the way, I love you.
And by the way, I love you. That's like, and he's like, okay.
Great.
She's like 10 years old, and he's just like confessing anyway. And then it like flashes back into the present, and him and his wife like have sex, and he tells a bunch of sex, and he talks about, like, he wrote this erotic novel series called The Monogamous Casanova about him and his wife's sexcapades.
Yeah, because they had to keep it interesting.
And then, like, wakes up, and he's like, I will do anything for you, Helga. I love you no matter what. And then, he's like, there's nothing you can say. And she's like, there's nothing I can say. And he's like, yes, there's nothing you can say. And he's like, well, actually, I'm not Helga. I'm Racy. Mm. So it turns out that he was like sleeping with his wife's sister.
And there is a clue earlier when she comes up where he's like, she looked so good.
She looks so much younger than she should.
She looked like she was 40 instead of whatever he's supposed to be. Like,
he's in his 40s. She looks like she's in her
30s. That's it.
Right. And so she's like, it's just weird how preserved her good looks are.
Because she told me this story about her trials and tribulations in Russia.
Right, where she was like a prisoner and then like basically had to like work in a cigarette factory and all this other stuff. Like
she was also a prostitute at
one point, right? All this stuff, right? But it turns out it's racy. And he kind of like, they talk through it and he's kind of like accepting that maybe they could make this work. I think he's just so terribly lonely at this point.
But he's getting so much hate mail too that eventually he and his buddy Kraft and Racy are like, we gotta get out of here.
Yeah.
We should go to Mexico.
Well, they go on an errand and they come back to find the big man standing in front of his mailbox, and he basically beats the shit out of him.
That's right.
And then he wakes up in Jones's basement, and Kraft, and this is when they make the plan to flee.
Yeah.
Then it kind of flashes back to the present, and he like has a meeting with Eichmann.
It's like they like run into each other in the hallway essentially.
Of the prison.
Yeah.
And they're both like the people of the prison want so much to understand why these people did what they did that they give them all the resources that they can to write their stories, and so you can basically get it down on paper and all this stuff.
Eichmann's like, man, I wish I was a good writer. Like,
I wish I was a good writer. And if you don't know who Eichmann was the literal engineer of the Death Camp.
Oh yeah, Eichmann was the worst.
He was the administrator of all of the technical things to get all the material to proceed with the execution. He didn't do the executions himself, but he built the entire industrial network that made the Holocaust possible.
Yeah, the reason the Holocaust was so effective was because of accountants and engineers.
Yep. Like without people like Eichmann, it wouldn't have been possible to eliminate 6 million Jews, and I don't remember how many. It's
6 million other peoples. People.
It's 12 million total.
This is a bugaboo of mine. We only ever talk about the 6 million Jews, but you've got like queer people, you've got Roma people, you've got black people, you have disabled people. All these other people double the number, but we only ever say 6 million. It's 12 million.
It's 12 million. It's a thing that bothers me too, because it erases
all these other minorities.
Right.
And it's the thing that I don't want to get started on Israel right now. Never mind. But
well, we'll get into it after.
Yeah, but yeah, that's how effective they were. The numbers double what we have in our popular consciousness.
Yep. So, okay, where were we here? So he recalls the meeting with Eichmann, and Eichmann is like the classic. He's like, I was just going to say I was following orders. And he thinks it's like this original defense.
Yeah, he came up with that.
He came up with it, and Campbell is like, that's like what like every Nazi ever says. But I think Vonnegut here is just like saying like, no matter how well worn that path is, people will still try it.
Yeah, it's effective, and people
will still try to do it.
Because we all do shit we don't want to do because our bosses tell us to.
So then
let's be real.
Yep. So then it flashes back to like the past where he's, getting ready to escape, and Campbell's asked to do the eulogy for Kroptauer before he escapes Mexico
Kroptauer's
City.
The old Jewish guy who dies, bringing up not Helga's, Racy's luggage.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, it's a very funny. It doesn't sound like a funny scene. It's a very funny scene.
It's such black humor, the whole thing.
Yeah.
But like, I think what the eulogy does, they bring him in, and then instead of just like giving the straight eulogy, they also play one of his broadcasts for you, which is like where you finally get to actually hear the kinds of hateful and terrible things.
It's fucking dark.
It is dark, and it is really like. It is like a brilliant piece of propaganda.
Truly,
it is, and it really highlights how good Campbell was at this. In the midst of this kind of whole service, the Blue Fairy Godmother or one of his agents slips a note into his pocket, and it's like basically calling him. He's like, I'm outside, come meet me. Then it flashes back to the end of the war, where he's meeting his spy master.
For the second
out of 3 times.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And he tells him, basically what had happened. Like, 6 women died getting information to you, and you didn't even know them.
But they loved you.
But they all loved
did
you
such a good
because you
job.
did such a good job, and all this stuff. And this is actually like a really prescient, or not prescient. It's a really good conversation about how, like, it doesn't matter whether or not Campbell was a spy, he was still a Nazi.
I think the thing that Frank is getting at in this conversation, because he so basically, like, Campbell's like, hey man, I wasn't a real Nazi, and he's like, weren't you though?
Mm-hmm.
You did the best job at driving morale for the Nazis of anybody out there and converting people to their cause, because you went harder than everybody else, because you were a spy, you were afraid of getting caught.
Mm-hmm.
So you worked harder at the job than anybody else did, and therefore did a better job. That makes you a Nazi.
And then he also poses the question, let me ask you this. If we had lost the war and Hitler had won, what would you have done? And he, like, kind of, hems and haws a little bit.
About it,
and then he's like, well, I guess I would have continued to, stay.
But if Germany had taken over, I probably would have eventually broken down and done an act of violence, and, like, basically he describes, going on like a shooting spree or something like that.
Well, he says that, but then he pulls himself back and he says, but then, violence has never been terribly effective at getting anyone's points across.
That's true.
That's what he essentially says.
Yeah.
And so he kind of, and then it flashes back to the present for the final conversation he has. Sort of final conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
a final conversation.
Conversation, yes.
Not communication.
So, he's meeting, he finds out that both Kraft and Racy are Russian spies.
Yep.
He also finds out that all his work has actually, ironically, been printed in Russia by a guy who stole all his work, all his plays, and even his book, The Monogamous Casanova.
It's a bestseller.
It's like they're all a bestseller all across Russia, everywhere.
His plays are running in, like, the same play is, like, being performed in, like, 3 different major cities in Russia at the same time.
He's like basically Hamilton. It's everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. He describes it as, like, one of his plays is like Charlie's Aunt for Russia.
Yeah.
Which is, like, one of the most performed plays in, like, high schools across the country. It's so funny.
So it's like, obviously he has some artistic talent, and obviously he was a really fantastic...
Oh, no, he was a very good playwright.
Mm-hmm.
But all of his plays were also frivolous. That's why the comparison to Charlie's Aunt is important. Because that's a drawing room comedy, has nothing political to say. It's basically just, a love farce. And that's what he wrote before. That's what he really good.
No, it was the...
No, it's The Goblet, yeah.
Was it the... Or no, it was The Grail, wasn't it? Because it was about...
It's The Goblet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it's about the 2 lovers who... They both have to protect their purity.
The Grail is a goblet.
And the Grail is a goblet, yeah. But anyway, it's like a silly romance.
Yeah.
It's like a rom-com almost.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Campbell then confronts Kraft and Racy. Basically, they tell him that, like, we've changed our mind. We actually want to defect with you into Mexico, which you don't even know what's really true or what's going on.
I think that Racy might want to, but Kraft definitely doesn't. Yeah.
And at the middle of that, the FBI bursts in, and Racy kills herself. She takes a cyanide tablet and dies.
Classic.
And then Kraft goes to jail. After this whole kerfuffle, he is let free because, like, obviously he is like
he's a spy.
He's a spy.
He's protected by Frank.
Right. Frank protects him. He returns to his cozy little attic and sees a policeman there. And then, like, the policeman goes on this whole diatribe about how all the world's problems is because of chemicals, which I think is probably, like, what was going on in psychology at the moment.
I fucking loved it because it reminded me of, like, anti-vaxxer bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah, it was all, like, conspiracy theory.
Yeah, it was so funny.
Right. It was like, oh, yeah, everybody does all this.
It's all down to hormones.
It's all down to hormones and chemicals.
Yeah.
Like, look at women. They have their period. They go crazy every month. And then he goes on and on. He's like, that's why people commit mass murder. And, it's like, it's like, what's that? I don't know if you've been following this what the hell's that neuroscientist? Robert Sawowski. I remember what his name is, but he's like, he wrote this book in 2023 that no one has free will, that it's all just chemical impulses. And
that's what this guy is saying.
That's exactly what this guy is saying. So, and he's trying to use neuroscience to prove it. I'm personally not even remotely convinced, but I like the idea of free will, but perhaps I'm deluding myself.
Well, it's probably the chemicals that are doing it.
Yep, it's the chemicals.
Speaking of chemicals, I'm going to drink some.
O'Hare finally catches up to him, shows up in his little cozy attic, and is like in his like military uniform, ready to kill him.
But he's drunk as shit.
He's drunk as shit. Tells him about his boring life. He's like, I fought for this country. I thought my friends died in the muck for this country. And, now
I sell custard out of a van.
Right, I sell custard out of a van for the last 15 years. And what kind of life is that? What was I promised? And so he's like basically wanting to play the hero. His whole main purpose is to like kill Campbell. And then
he's gonna do it barehanded.
You think he's gonna do it barehanded? Campbell thinks he has a weapon, which of course you would think he has a weapon.
He's dressed in his fucking uniform.
He's dressed in his uniform. So he just like pulls out like a little it's a fire tongs, and he beats him with a fire tongs and breaks his arm, and then gets him out. He can't get the fuck out. So.
Pukes down the stairwell.
Right.
Like that scene in The Bourne Identity where Jason Bourne just like drops down the stairwell and just like shoots all the guys on the way down. He doesn't do that. He just pukes down it. He's just all the way down.
Yeah. He's just like,
he tells him to clean it up.
And he's like, clean up your mess, right? It's like, but then like, I think this is like the final breaking point with everything that's happened.
Yeah.
So
totally.
he goes right down to his neighbor, the Dr. Epstein downstairs, and he says, I'd like to stand trial in Israel. Take me in. And the doctor's like, get the fuck out of here. I don't want anything to do with it.
I don't have anything to do with
anything with
Interestingly, he's like, I'm not a fucking Zionist, you motherfucker. Like,
yeah, he's like, leave me alone.
Yeah, like, I don't believe in that shit. Which is interesting.
Yeah, we'll get into that later. And then his mother is like, no, take him in.
Yeah.
But there's this great passage where the mother says, I've seen those eyes before. I've seen those eyes before, the men who are going to die in the camps. He's empty, he's hollow, there's nothing left in him.
Right.
So then it finally goes to the end of the book. He's in prison, he's reading his mail. He thinks he's getting ready to go on trial, and he's like, there's no one possibly left to save me now, and he's kind of happy about it.
Yeah, he's like, he feels this immense sense of relief in that.
That he's just like, the absurdity of everything that has happened, and how he just like, I think he is just so dead inside from everything that has happened, that there's just nothing left, and he's looking forward to basically being executed.
Yeah.
And then his spy handler sends him a letter saying, like, basically confirming everything, and he's like, you may use this, here's my real name, you can find me, I'm well retired, so I don't care anymore. And he's like, you know what? He tears up the letter, and he says, I'm going to go hang myself.
Fuck this shit.
And that's the end of the book.
It's great. It's a great book.
It was a really good book. I have a lot to say about propaganda, but I think we should start with the art stuff we talked about before the episode.
Yeah.
That you were talking about.
Yeah, first. So I think the most interesting...
Oh, real quick. Questions. There's a lot of you watching today, so if you got questions, ask them.
Write them down.
We'll get them in the comments.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to ask questions. We're gonna vibe here, or we're gonna riff here for a few minutes. We're happy to answer your questions.
So one of the things that really hit me, because I watched this video about the Berlin International Film Festival, like last week or the week before that, and there was a big kerfuffle there because during the opening press conference for it, there's this big panel of all the organizers and some of the celebrities that were presenting films there. One of them was Neil Patrick Harris. And a reporter in the audience asked the question, basically like, you guys are... I want to say that they had an Israeli film in presentation at the film festival. And he's like, how do you guys feel about this because of the genocide going on in Gaza? And all of the panel, including Neil Patrick Harris, equivocated about it. And they were like, the point of this film festival is to be a bastion of like relief in these troubled times. And this art isn't about politics. This art is about expression and like finding a moment of peace, you know, in turbulent waters. And Neil Patrick Harris explicitly said, one of the things I love about my art is that it's apolitical. And I think that it's really interesting that the life that Howard Campbell was living in this book as an American-born citizen of Germany in what I don't know if you guys know anything about Germany and Berlin and like the art scene immediately before the rise of fascism in Germany, but it was very avant-garde. It was very queer. It was very expressive of ideas. But as you can see in the play or the film Cabaret, as Nazis rose to power, all that was kind of quashed. And the thing that the video essayist was saying about the rise of fascism and the attitude of the Berlin International Film Festival, which has always presented itself as the most political film festival in the world, is that when you don't confront fascism in your art, you allow fascism to take over, and that always strangles art. Mm-hmm. So Howard Campbell was an artist in Berlin in the rise of fascism, and all of his art was very effervescent and was very, focused on things that weren't what we would consider very political. They weren't focused on like movements or anything like that. It was just about love and relationships. But as he is co-opted by the war effort, both by the Americans and by the Germans, his art obviously has to become very political, and by extension of that, hateful.
Yeah.
And one of the interesting things that we find out later in the book is that he doesn't feel like he can express himself anymore. When he's talking to Kraft, the reason he goes down to talk to his neighbor Kraft, he doesn't know who he is, but he's whittled he bought woodworking tools and whittled chess pieces out of a broom handle, and he's excited by this because he hasn't been able to do any writing since his propaganda days.
Right.
As he's living in his garret apartment in New York, he's living in Greenwich Village, the most artistic neighborhood in the biggest city in the world, but he doesn't write anymore. One day on a whim, he decides to do a different form of art. And he's so excited by that, by creating little chessmen, that he runs downstairs to a person he's never talked to before. And he's like, look at what I did. Mm-hmm. I cut my hand 8 times, but they're great, right? And this dude is a painter. Mm-hmm. And so that's how they get into conversation with one another. And eventually he reveals his secret and stuff like that. But I think the point of that is the point that the video essayist was making. I want to say it was Taylor Lorenz. But she was saying that, if you don't confront fascism with your art, Berlin International Film Festival, your art will suffer and eventually become extinct. And that is literally what Vonnegut is talking about. Mm-hmm. I just thought it was an interesting point because I confronted these two commentaries at roughly the same time. But yeah, Vonnegut's a genius, and I think she's right. I think if we don't, and Neil Patrick Harris, I liked you as Doogie Howser. I didn't like you on that other show, but get your shit together. You're one of the great Tony, host of the Tony Awards, and just because you are a cis gay man, doesn't mean that when the fascism rises, you won't be confronted by that, because queer people were put to death in the concentration camps.
Yep.
They will come for you too.
Yeah. You
feel safe now because gay marriage is legal, but how long is that going to fucking last, man? The Supreme Court is knocking down all of the rights all the time.
Yeah.
Get your shit together. Confront the fucking danger, man.
Yeah. I mean, we mentioned that old poem that became the Woody Guthrie song.
Of course.
Last time, or the time before, many times actually. At this
Probably
point,
every
right?
time.
First they come from the communists, and I wasn't a communist, so I just let it happen.
The socialists.
And then they came for the Jews, and then
Yep.
they came for the queer people, and then
Exactly.
they, on and on. And, you have to stand
I didn't
up
do
for each
anything
other.
because they weren't me, but then they came for me too.
Right. So you stand up for your neighbors and friends, and
Exactly.
So,
But fucking film festival producers and rich celebrities, they feel like they're invulnerable because they have so much like status and they have so much money. But those things they can be taken away so easily.
yeah, and
Fascist
so much
governments can take your money whenever they want to, and they can just make a law that eliminates your status.
Well, especially when it's funny money.
Absolutely.
It doesn't really exist. Once you get into the
Absolutely.
millions range of money and you have all these assets and all this other stuff, and most of your money, like your net worth, isn't even liquid.
Right.
Most of that stuff is like not even real. It's funny money.
Absolutely.
They live in a completely different economic system than we do. And so you have a situation where like all of these are just numbers in a computer somewhere that can just be canceled out.
Absolutely. If it's all invested in property, but like property prices go down, that shit goes away.
Well, this is why like when people talk about like, well, how do we deal with billionaires? It's like they live on funny money. It's all monopoly money, guys.
Absolutely. It's basically stocks.
It's not real. And what are stocks but speculation on reality?
Exactly.
It's not real. None of this is real.
Watch Trading Places. You'll find out how fucking ludicrous stocks
The
are.
movie is amazing.
It's so good.
It's so good. It's so good. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about propaganda here. My background is actually media systems and anthropology. That was my graduate research.
Mm-hmm.
I looked at how do you combat 24-hour news media and propaganda as a mean, like through community-based media systems, specifically through a local theater troupe called the Romero Theater Troupe. We've mentioned before on this show, but in case this is the first episode you're watching, the film is on my YouTube channel, my own personal one. It's called Unbound, the story of the Romero Theater Troupe. But I've spent a lot of time thinking about propaganda and how it works and how it fosters narratives. And so when we get to the father-in-law, and he says, even if you were a spy, and this is his exact quote, you could never serve the enemy as well as you served us. You alone kept me from believing Germany had gone insane.
Yeah.
Right? So here's this propaganda thing, right? And here's kind of what my thoughts are on this whole thing, right? And I'm thinking of Fox News. I'm thinking of state media and comparing them to like the propaganda in Mother Night. And the thing is, the right story gives atrocity room to breathe. It gives a space for it to exist. It fills that empty place left in the wake of fear and confusion and gives a semblance of purpose. That's what propaganda does.
Absolutely.
That's what makes it so dangerous. So someone who is confused and isolated and lonely and is afraid, this propaganda gives them a cause. It lights a fire under them, gives them a sense of purpose that they don't have otherwise. That's what makes it so dangerous.
That makes a lot of sense because, to be honest, I think if you're living a hateful life where you're driven by your fears and by the things that you disagree with and want to fight against, you can burn yourself out really quickly. Mm-hmm. But if someone gives you a new idea to combat your own cognitive dissonance, you get another wave of energy. You get that like adrenaline rush that pushes you forward and helps you like fight through the cognitive dissonance of like the things that you see, but the things you're being told,
And propaganda and fascism or any system like it requires constant maintenance.
Absolutely.
And that propaganda has to keep coming wave after wave because, as you said, otherwise you start to think. Yeah. You need a new target, you need a new event, you need a new extreme example to fixate on so that you have a constant cycle of worked up emotions.
You need a new, like, they're outrage. Eating the pets.
They're eating the pets. You need it over and over again. What is
sorry, they're eating you.
Don't let them eat you, right? Yeah, puppies and outrage.
That's right.
That's right. Exactly. Call it out like it is.
Yeah.
But so you need this constant maintenance, and it's actually really funny because I was talking to someone about their parent who like constantly watches Fox News, and I was like, like I challenge you to challenge them to just like switch to CNN. Not that CNN is great. CNN's got plenty of problems.
I shouldn't have laughed at CNN.
But CNN is like, while it is highly problematic and it's a part of this whole propaganda model, it's not the same as Fox News.
Ooh.
It's a different kind of series of normalcy and propaganda. Yeah. I don't know if it was the algorithm.
I hope they don't go down to Newsmax, like...
Well, yeah, that's like the more extreme, right?
Yeah.
That's like for the people who are not crazy enough on Fox News. They went to Newsmax.
Yeah.
But so it was funny because I said this, and I don't know if it was the algorithm or my phone listening or what. So like the next day I get this little study that comes up that was recently, I think it was done by Harvard or an Ivy League school.
Okay.
And what they did is they took all these people who are far right leaning and they paid them $17 an hour to watch CNN, only CNN, no Fox News, for 7 hours a week. And after 6 weeks, their opinions changed on almost everything.
Holy shit! Are you kidding me?
That's just 6 weeks of away from Fox News. Because again, propaganda requires constant maintenance.
No,
keep people angry and upset and outraged.
It totally does. I'm just realizing how effective Fox News is.
It's extremely effective because it works up on every emotion. It hyperbolizes any small incident and makes it into a giant story.
Turned a brown suit into like an impeachment level event.
Right. If you know what we're talking about, it's Obama wore a tan suit once.
One
time, and Fox News made it into like basically a
presidential.
It's like a war crime to them.
Yeah.
They're also the ones who, if they weren't wearing a flag lapel pin,
oh my God,
that was
right.
the same. It was the same people, right? So
they were basically saying that 9/11 didn't happen or some shit like that. Yeah. And if you didn't wear the lapel pin, you thought that the Twin Towers deserved to.
Right, which is in a whole wake of any critique that American foreign policy might have possibly contributed to the terrorist organization that the Americans funded during the Cold War.
Yeah.
So that's the point here, and I think, I mean, it is so astute of Vonnegut to be like, this is how powerful propaganda is. And not only is it powerful what propaganda does to the community, what it does to ourselves. It rots our insides.
I think it's really interesting, too, because, like, so many people, when they're on the verge of selling out, talk about how they want to take the system down from the inside. This is essentially what Howard Campbell thinks he's going to do, or what he's persuaded to do by Frank when he's recruited. Like, serve us by being a Nazi, but feeding us information. But I think the whole point of the book, and then like the conclusion of the book, like Frank's conversation with Howard at the end of it, is that he was much more effective as a Nazi than he was as a spy. Like, all the women, I mean, he did a great job and D-Day happened and everything like that because of his coughing, but the ramifications of what he did later in the book, as demonstrated by the Christian white Minutemen and, Dr. Jones and everything like that. Like, his legacy lives on into the 60s. Mm-hmm. All of the shit that he was saying in the 1940s is being regurgitated in the 60s. Mm-hmm. Because he was such an effective writer. I guess that's also why his plays are being performed in Russia in the 60s. He was that good. Mm-hmm. But, like, his powers are being used for good and evil in two different places. But should he have ever used his powers for evil? Probably not, actually. I don't know. Actually, now that I think about it, I guess it's good that the U.S. won the war.
Yeah, but, I mean, I guess the question is any one spy's contribution... It's just so hard, because it's like...
Well, we know for a fact that the reason that D-Day was successful was because of the body that was floated down that one river, you know? Yeah. It wasn't Howard Campbell's contribution. Really, what he contributed was like a new level of virulent racism.
Yeah, it's definitely like, I think I read somewhere some other commentator, because sometimes I like to read what other people are thinking about,
About the books we
about
read?
the books we read.
Okay.
And one article, I forget where it was. I mean, this was an old article. It was like the 1980s or something like that. It was
Yeah, we
like,
read some really old books, though. It's fine.
we do. Yeah. You are what you pretend to be.
Yes, that's exactly right. Fake it till you make it, man.
Right. So you are what you pretend to be. So if you are pretending to be a Nazi and you ferment, or you essentially ferment this whole situation and solidify it, like at
Wait, do you ferment or do you foment?
foment. Sorry, not ferment.
Well,
Different.
they're kind of similar.
Yeah, I mean you're cultivating something.
Exactly,
right?
yeah.
With both circumstances. Yeah. There was also this his dream about the steamroller.
Yeah,
You remember that?
Absolutely.
Like everyone is just talking about the steamroller coming and it's gonna run everyone over and they're not getting out of the way and he's just
It's that
like,
scene from Austin Powers, man.
I know. Steamrollers are forever ruined for me after Austin Powers. I cannot take them seriously. No, right? So but yet a steamroller is so easy to avoid. You just have to step out of the way. And so when it talks about the rise of fascism, the best time to stop it is when it's working you up and like addressing issues like Fox News.
Yes.
Like I don't know.
But I think the point that he's also making is that satire doesn't work because a lot of the writing that Howard Campbell was doing was satirical.
Mm-hmm.
He was actually, because he was a writer of plays specifically, he was taking a satirical approach to Nazi ideas, but that didn't work. It didn't undermine anything. In fact, encouraged people to be more extreme in their ideas, which I think is a really interesting point because Jon Stewart spent most of the aughts trying to take Fox News down from a satirical approach. And it did not work.
No.
It only made Fox News more powerful because Jon Stewart ended up using most of his time on The Daily Show to just rail against Fox News in either a satirical way or a non-satirical way. To be honest, Stephen Colbert did that too.
Yeah.
But I liked his show better, so I'm not as mad at him. But in fact, what they did was prop them up. Was make them more prominent in all of our eyes.
Right.
And inoculate them in a certain way to our criticism. Because we're like, we don't have to take a shot at Fox News. Stephen Colbert and Jon Stewart are already on that beat. And they're doing a great job of making me laugh every night.
Yeah.
So I don't think about them as a serious threat. I think of them as like buffoons and silly and non-threatening. Much like I thought of Donald Trump in 2015.
Right.
But look what the fuck happened.
Right.
So
Right.
satire doesn't fucking work. And I think Kurt Vonnegut made a great, he makes an excellent point of that in this book. I wish this book was more widely read.
Yeah. I actually am a little disappointed that it's not like one of his more famous ones.
Absolutely.
Granted, his other ones are also so good.
True.
that it's
Breakfast
hard.
of Champions and Slaughterhouse-Five and Cat's Cradle are all fucking excellent.
But I think this one is the most poignant.
I think it's
of
the
his
most
work
poignant.
that I've read
I think it's
anyway.
the most it's 260 pages and it fucking slaps and it has so many awesome thoughts and points and layers to it.
And it is,
I think it might actually be his
quick.
best work.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quick as fuck. And it's got the most important things to say.
Yeah, it is the most, it's like powerful
Breakfast of
and
Champions is like an indictment of suburbia, which is great. And I think we all need to digest that a little bit.
Yeah.
But this work on fascism and propaganda really hits, you guys.
I mean, I would put this book up there with many of the other books about the Holocaust and World War II.
Absolutely. Put it right next to Mao's, man.
Yeah, because it is so powerful and it is so lean too. It's accessible, and the absurdity of it all is he is so clear about how absurd all of this is.
And identity, man. When you oh God, I haven't even started really digesting that whole thing, but you're right, man. You are what you pretend to be.
Yeah. Well, and then, talk about the Black Fuhrer of Harlem.
Shit.
Right? So here's this guy who is like, he hates white people, just like the white people hate him. But they're all full of hate. We're all full of hate here.
Absolutely. Hates white people. I get it, man. Same. But, like, hating is not the point.
Right.
And it's not going to fix anything.
And it's, there's a line he says there's like, all people are insane.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
we all kind of have our own little insanities. The best way to deal with that is to have strong community and accountability.
And don't indulge those insanities.
Don't create systems where you can indulge those insanities.
Yeah. It feels really good in the moment, but it's bad for you, and it's bad for society.
It's bad
too.
for everyone,
Yeah.
right? That's why, I'm going to say it over and over again. Fuck no more billionaires. No more fucking billionaires.
No more fucking billionaires.
Because if you want to talk about indulgence, there is no one who is more indulgent than those people.
And they're so easily lauded, too. Like, half of the think pieces out there are talking about, wow, isn't this billionaire so smart? He came up with this new way of doing something, and it's, like, revolutionizing everything. And we should just, like, give him all of our money, And it's so fucking stupid and corrupt and, like, self-defeating. Like, most billionaires didn't create one thing. They didn't innovate goddamn anything. They just lucked into a position where a bunch of smart people made a thing and they could take credit for it.
They're really good managers. That's really all most billionaires are.
Yeah, and, like, I mean, obviously management's important and shit like that, but it's not... No, they're not geniuses, you guys.
And they're not the most important.
Absolutely
there's
fucking not.
There's always going to be someone who can manage people and organize people in an efficient way. That doesn't mean you get $1 million.
No, or $1 billion.
$1 billion.
Yeah.
Right? That's
Yeah.
why we need maximum wages, all that other stuff.
Oh,
we
shit,
rail
yeah.
on all the
Absolutely,
time, and we
yeah.
go on and on about all that stuff.
We don't need to reiterate that right now.
No.
I gotta work it. I gotta work it.
That's right. And I just think, kind of circling back a little bit to the propaganda and what this book is so heavily about is say something. When
Absolutely.
something is happening, say something.
Absolutely.
Stand up for people, for communities. And this is also why there's so much effort right now and in the rise of any time of fascism or authoritarianism or any flavor of extreme hierarchical control. There's
Any
always
of the isms.
Any of the isms. There's always book banning.
Yes.
Why is there book banning?
Because ideas, man.
Ideas are dangerous.
Yeah.
Ideas challenge things. If people just turned off the fucking Fox News and the CNN and MSNBC and they actually started reading books, or they turned off TikTok. I mean, you could watch TikTok too, but read a fucking book.
Absolutely.
If you're reading books from diverse perspectives on a regular basis, you are much more equipped to suffer less as a person, and as a society as a whole suffer less.
Yeah, you might be aggravated a little bit because you're like, God damn it, why can't people see what's fucking going on? But you won't be the person who's buying into fascism or buying into capitalism. All of these things want to control you. But you can moderate that shit by having ideas of your own. And the best way to have ideas of your own is to read books. Yeah. Just read books, man.
And share your stories.
Yeah, absolutely.
What have you been through?
Oh my God, yes.
All the people out here listening to this stuff, read books, be informed on things, but also share your sincere struggles.
Yeah.
Because everybody out there faces some degree of oppression. It's not a question of if, it's a question of how much.
Yes.
And so we all have stories of struggle to share.
Yeah, man.
And so sharing those stories and some of us writing them down is important to maintain our sanity.
And be brave about it, man. Share your stories with people that you get a good vibe from. Literally today at work, my coworker was telling me about her abusive boyfriend in college and the struggle she was having with some relationship shit, and it was all really personal and raw, and she got a little teary-eyed about it. But I was just I was there and I was giving her feedback and being man, dude, that I was basically just that sucks.
Yeah.
and I'm sorry that shit happened to you. And she felt better about the shit that happened to her and her struggle. And like, that's how communities formed, man. Like,
And
don't be afraid to share the shit that you're going through with people. Obviously, like, you know, take a vibe check first, but like, you know, be personal with people, build community. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, and because honestly, so much of the world, people just want to be heard. Their whole life, they've not had the chance to share what their story is, and that can be sometimes by performative masculinity, for example. Like, we don't talk about a lot of men's issues because men are the worst, and it's like, yes, men are the worst, but men don't get to be the worst on accident.
Absolutely,
it's systemic.
Hitler became one of the world's worst genocidaires just because he was a bad artist and people were mean to him about it, man. Like,
right. Yeah,
also,
therapist.
he was in World War One, and that was a bad time. But like,
yeah,
dude, if he had access to therapy back then, can you imagine?
Yeah,
we wouldn't have this whole Israel-Palestine situation if that was the case.
Yeah. And just to be clear, like there is a difference, and we must be able to criticize governments and militaries
absolutely
separate from like Jewish people. You know, like
Jewish people, like they're the funniest people out right now, and every time. Jewish people are, dude, they're great. The state of Israel is doing a genocide. Those are two different things.
Yeah, they are.
My best friend when I was growing up was Jewish. I love him to death. The food is good. The culture's great. The state of Israel is a bad time.
Well,
man.
and like Netanyahu is he's just Trump. He's using power so that he doesn't go to jail.
He's Jewish Trump, absolutely,
Jewish
man.
Trump, so
or Jewish Putin, however you want to look at it.
And it's also like important to acknowledge that a lot of people in Israel who are Jewish are protesting what's happening in Gaza too.
Absolutely.
Like there are whole organizations.
But there's also an effect of propaganda happening over there where the protests are like becoming less frequent and less virulent because of propaganda.
Propaganda is so powerful.
It is.
It's so powerful.
And it's wearing people down, just like, you know, I mean, anytime there's a movement here, like Black Lives Matter, it burns out eventually because of the propaganda on Fox News and CNN and MSNBC. Sorry, I've had a martini.
Well, it's MS Now. Too.
MS Now?
It's MS
what?
Now. They rebranded.
Oh my, of course they rebranded. But yeah, no, like they wear everybody down from different political angles. So like Fox News wears people down from the conservative angle, and CNN wears people down from the centrist angle, and MS Now wears people down from the liberal angle.
Performative liberal angle.
The performative liberal angle.
Which is what most celebrities are.
Absolutely, they're performative liberals. Neil Patrick Harris is a performative liberal, you know?
I care about the rights that matter to me and nothing else.
Those specific rights, those are the ones I like.
You gotta.
Yeah, man, you gotta stand up for everybody's right.
And you gotta, if you're not working to help people find their dignity, and that's even just listening to your coworkers who's having a bad day.
Yeah.
Giving people their time with dignity, then you're like part of the problem.
Absolutely, man.
So
be in community with people, read books.
Yeah.
And, dude, fight fascism.
And you are what you pretend to be.
Fuck yeah, you are.
You gotta hand me the mouse. Final thoughts?
That's it, man.
That's final thoughts?
You are what you pretend to be.
You are what you pretend to be. All right, so next time we will be doing Let the Right One In. We actually have our whole schedule up here on YouTube. You can see the episodes coming and the dates.
We've got it up through May.
Up through May. So we've got Let the Right One In is next.
Yeah.
After that is A Gentleman in Moscow.
That was my favorite book of 2022, man.
I haven't read it yet.
It's so good. They made it into a mini series with Ewan McGregor.
Nice.
Hot.
Yeah.
And his wife, Mary Elizabeth Winstead,
also
hot. Yeah. It was on Amazon, so I didn't watch it. Bummer about the Amazon situation, but you know, I don't pay for that shit because fuck those guys. Fuck that one guy specifically. But I bet it was a really good miniseries because it was a very good book and they're two very good, attractive actors.
And then the final one is we're actually circling back in a way because we kind of talked about it before with Frankenstein, but we're going to do Paradise Lost.
Hell yeah.
So, which I have not read since high school.
But it was a very influential text to the creature.
Mhm.
So
I read it in my British literature class in high school.
you got a British literature class?
I also had a sci-fi and fantasy literature
What
class.
the fuck high school did you go to, man?
Went to Douglas County High School.
Wow, that's crazy.
It's not good.
Green Mountain
anymore,
wasn't
but-
as good as that.
Yeah, not good anymore, but it was better.
At one point, apparently.
I had poetry class. I had like 6 writing and literature classes.
Damn, I
In
wish I
high
went to
school.
that high school.
Yeah, and we actually had a really good history class, America since
I
1945.
actually had that class
That
at
was
my
a
high
great
school. That was a
class.
good high school. Yeah,
Some
Mr. Hastings.
Yeah, I can't remember what our teacher's name was, but man, someone brought up Rage Against the Machine in the class and how they were unpatriotic, and he says, no, they're the most patriotic.
They are the most
I
patriotic.
was like, what?
And then you found all about some shit, man.
That's right. That's
Yeah,
right. We had
yeah.
discussions about all kinds of things.
Man.
So yeah, that's what's coming up in Resistance Reads. As always, bring your comments, your thoughts. We don't have a lot of audience participation here. We'd love to have some more.
Give us participation.
Give us questions.
Attention, guys.
We do. We like attention. So all right, we'll see you next time. And,
Squanch of eye,
get out
everybody.
there and read some great books and enjoy. Man, 87.
Dude, that was